Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you all to our Autodesk community presentation, a spotlight on women in STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. This is the first of our projects for creating a more diverse and inclusive community, and we're very excited to hear how you feel about this. So please let us hear your comments. The session here is being hosted by your community managers, and our three excellent guests are all professional women from the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. We're going to kick off the program with a really quick introduction of your hosts so that we don't take time away from what's really important. And then we're going to let each of our guests tell us a little bit about themselves. And then I'm going to throw out one really quick slide with some resources from the community that you might be interested in. And we'll jump straight into the conversation with our guests and we'll take it from there. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. So myself, I am Chris Benner. I'm the community manager for product design and manufacturing. I joined Autodesk just under a year ago in June of last year, coming from a background of being a customer for over 20 years, an Expert Elite and an Autodesk University speaker. So I'm not going to talk too much more about myself. I don't really have anything to say, so I'm going to hand it over to Lena to introduce herself.
So hello everyone, my name is Lena. I am community manager for Russian community. I joined the community team almost 10 years ago, and it's very exciting to share experience with our expert elites today, as I'm having some experience in engineering in different industries, including AC.
All right, let's take some introductions from our guest speakers today. And Katie, you're up first.
Great, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. My name is Kati Mercier. I'm a civil professional engineer in the wonderful state of Connecticut. I've been an engineer for the past 16 years. And all those years I've been using Autodesk products, as a lot of civil engineers do. About 6 years ago or so, I was invited to be an Autodesk Expert Elite. I've been a speaker numerous times at Autodesk University. And I'm also a mom to 2 kids, trying to balance that with my engineering career and being involved in their extracurriculars as well. And just finding that balance of working and being a mom.
And next we'll hear from Stacey.
Hi, thanks everyone for having me here. My name is Stacey Morykin. I have been in the AEC industry for about 20 years. My current role is an engineering technology manager for a mid-sized engineering firm. I have just recently joined the Expert Elite program in September of 2020. And like Katie, I've spoken at Autodesk University. In 2019, I received a top speaker award. So I also am a mom. I have 2 kids. And thanks again for having me.
And last but certainly not least, let's hear from Purvi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Also, I'm really excited to be on this panel discussion. My name is Purvi Gandhi Irwin, and I am an architect and historic preservation and BIM specialist, and I'm headquartered in Alexandria, Virginia, just a little bit south of DC. I have been using Revit since 2008, so quite a while. I've been in architecture for over 20 years, if you include school as part of that. I am also a relatively newly minted Expert Elite, just about a year. It was last April that I became one. And I've spoken at AU and other professional conferences multiple times. And last year, I led a roundtable discussion on diversity and the issues with it in the AEC industry. So it's definitely getting diversity and getting more representation out there is really important to me. As part of that, I also sit on a local board of architecture review here in Alexandria. So that's how I kind of keep in the preservation game. And I have 3 children, a set of twins and an older daughter. And I am a newly minted Daisy Girl Scout leader. So I'm trying to help that way to support the next generation of girls to be leaders.
Thank you all for that introduction. A little bit of self-promotion here for the communities. We just thought these were some links that you guys might be interested in. And the links themselves will be posted in the video description when it's posted up on YouTube. So I'm going to go through these very quickly. So I just wanted to mention now the Autodesk Group Network. If you're interested in a global network of user groups, you're going to want to check out this link once I get it into the video description. We have our new industry-focused communities for both AEC and design and manufacturing, and those links will be in the description as well for a number of different resources that can help you in these industries. Of course, the Autodesk forums, where would we be without those? So we're going to give you the link to get onto the Autodesk forums and share what you know and find out what you don't know. And last but not least, follow us on Twitter, and we will be presenting all kinds of interesting information out on our Twitter channel. So these links again will be in the video description. And with that, let's get past the business and jump right into the most important part, our discussion with our three guests.
I want to start from the question about your current role. What motivates you on this role and what exactly your role is about?
So to talk a little bit about, what I am currently doing, I am a civil engineer for WSP USA here in Connecticut. I'm a lead civil engineer in our civil site department at our office. We have about just over a dozen people. It's one of the offices that I've worked at that has the highest number of percentage of women engineers from all my past jobs. So it's been really exciting being able to work in such a gender diverse group, which has been a lot of fun.
As I said, I'm an architect and a preservation specialist. I work for CAD Microsystems. We're an Autodesk Platinum partner, and I am the practice manager for architecture. So I kind of lead the architecture, which is mostly Revit and BIM 360 related. Really why I do this job is that I really love the technology. I really love being in the technology. I love learning new things, and I love teaching. I really get a lot of personal satisfaction from teaching other people. I have to say some of my favorite things are teaching Revit level 1 and just seeing the light bulbs go off in people's faces, or just, when certain things that are so tedious to do, in a 2D drafting environment are automated so nicely in the software. People just get really excited about that. And I love that part of my job is just fixing people's problems. I love it so much that I get to go and help firms and figure out things. And in the process, I learn. So it's all about learning and teaching. That's really where my enjoyment lies, is in those things in particular.
Following up on what Purvi said, I mean, I don't know how I can better state than what she already has, but in my current role, I'm an engineering technology manager for Gannett Fleming, located in Pennsylvania. So my role really is moving the needle in the horizontal infrastructure space. I'm not in Revit. I think that if I got my hands on Revit, everybody would be in a lot of trouble. So my focus really has been on Civil 3D, collaboration for Civil 3D, GIS, and just everything that's included with the horizontal space. And while we have similar roles, Purvi and I do, with helping people, teaching, I definitely, that's why I get up in the morning. I also do teach at, I'm an adjunct professor for a local community college here, and just seeing the progression over technology over the last 20 plus years that I've been here, I started out on the drafting board. So getting that theory and fundamentals and seeing kids today understanding why they're drawing or designing things the way that they are, and not just clicking buttons on a computer, is really why I get up. So it's every day and keep striving forward, right? It's helping that next generation get where we are.
One question I did have that kind of came up while you guys were describing your current roles is, I mean, we've seen a lot of change in the industry over, at least during my lifetime for sure. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced as women in your industry? Because I know when I first started out, this was all a man's world 25, 30 years ago. So what kind of challenges did you guys face? And because, I mean, you've all done wonderful things.
Going into architecture, I think I went to a school that was just 3 majors: art, architecture, and engineering. And so it was interesting to see the makeup of each of the 3 departments. Now, the school was in the middle of New York City. So in terms of cultural diversity, it was very diverse. But, the architecture school was about 1/3 women. The engineering school was about 1/4 women. And then the art school was about half and half, which makes sense, right? And so even just from that standpoint, getting there, being one, I mean, the whole architecture school my freshman year was 35 people. So being one of 12 women to be accepted to that program was pretty exciting and, pretty amazing for me. And I think that being in New York City, I felt really lucky because it is such a diverse place. And I had professors who were from all over the world. And as those of you who know me know, I am not a quiet person. I don't just take things. And so I go for the things that I want. I had a professor who had a practice in Italy. And I said, hey, I want a job in Italy. Can you find me a job? I don't care what it's doing. I just want to spend the summer in Italy. And he found me a job with an architect doing some drafting work. And I got on a plane and went to Rome, didn't speak the language, didn't know anybody, and just jumped in and did it. And I think that mentality is really what's helped me. And so if I come across any challenges or any barriers, I just I approach them full head on and have confidence in myself that I belong where I am. And I think that confidence is really important because, if you show that you don't have confidence in yourself, then how are other people going to have confidence in you, right? So I think that's really important, is that confidence. And I think that that's helped me. And I've tried to use that to help others. So there, of course, have been circumstances where, being on a construction site, you kind of get looked down upon because you're a woman and you're like, well, what are you doing here? But I spent an entire year on a construction site doing construction administration. And I think that helped both me gain the confidence, and it helped the contractors to understand that, yes, women can do this job too. And I hope that helped them to be more open-minded on future projects.
In talking about some of my own challenges and sort of adding to what Purvi was just talking about, I really liked when she was talking about just going for what you want, as well as, having to be confident. I mean, one of the things that I've always sort of looked at with, gender diversity, I mean, a lot of people are always talking about the gender pay gap, but there's also a lot of gender confidence gap that I've run across for both myself as well as a lot of the other women engineers that I've worked with. A lot of times I'll be in a meeting or at a construction site, and if there is another coworker who is male, I often find that other people will turn to that person instead of me, even if I'm the project manager. And even if I've just been the one who's been talking, and it's having that confidence and being able to be like, oh yeah, I can answer that for you. And then sort of taking the question back. And I think having really supportive, male coworkers who understand that and who don't mind me, not stepping on their toes, but like them understanding that, like, or even them directing the question back, to me. So having those advocates of coworkers who know your worth, but also you seeing your own worth, I think is really important. Having to advocate for yourself, having to be confident. I mean, imposter syndrome's a real thing, and it's something that I've, struggled with throughout my years. But realizing that, like, yeah, I know this stuff. I've done it. I can share that knowledge and help with my other women peers and women coworkers, and give them that same confidence that they could do it too, I think is important.
Yeah, I don't know what I can add to this, because these ladies are taking it all home, right? I think that my challenges similar. I think when I started in middle school with drafting and design technology, I was the only one. And at that point in time, you could pick and choose what your electives were in middle school where I went. And I can still remember to this day going home and my father asking me, well, what did you pick? And I was telling him all about this. And he's kind of looking at me and he's like, how many other girls were in that class? I was like, none, just me. And he's like, okay, I get it. If this is something you're really interested in, but you're going to have to grow some thick skin, right? Or almost align yourself, like Katie mentioned, with those individuals who see past the gender. And really, I think in my career, I've been fortunate enough to have mentors, coworkers, colleagues, bosses who looked past that and saw my skill set and my knowledge and my drive and initiative and confidence. And we, locked arms and here we are today.
That's really great stories of each of you. And here's some stories which I experienced at my university. I was on one of fourth, but when I became a teacher in university, I saw more and more girls in mechanical engineering. So I really hear what you're saying, and I really glad that you shared about the confidence, and that's when we have male co-worker who can help us and inspire us to be more confident with what we're saying and what we're talking about. It's really great advice. But my question is to you is, do you see any specific challenges in AEC and industry?
And I think that, we live in a very, gender biased society. I mean, there's implicit bias in everything. And so I think that it does carry over to other things besides just our industry. So this is definitely not something that, only happens here. I mean, I don't know if I can really think of any industry where if you think about it, you don't think about either a male or a female, right? Because that's just how our society has been organized for thousands of years. I know, if you think of a librarian, what do you think of? If you think of a nurse, what do you think of? If you think of a teacher, what do you think of, right? And then a doctor, an engineer, an architect, a lawyer. I mean, every single one, we've kind of been conditioned to think of male professions and female professions. And I think that we really have to fight against that as much as we can to say, there's no profession that's related to a gender. It's everybody should be able to be whatever they want. And so I don't know if it's specifically an AEC issue. I think that it's a society issue as a whole.
Reminds me of when I was a few years younger and just getting into college. There were two fields that the girls went into. Two. You either went into nursing or secretarial school. That was it. The men could do anything they wanted. The girls, you had to pick one of those two. In our, Lena and I are both in the mechanical world. And I know that around me, at least in the state of Michigan, there are a lot of programs for young girls in grade school, middle school, and high school, most notably the FIRST Robotics program, that they definitely go after young girls to get them interested in these fields and grab them at a young age and try to see who's really interested in it. Is there anything for the AEC industry that you guys know of or that you're involved in to try to get younger girls interested in these careers?
So I have one that I've done in the past. I'm not doing it right now, but I've done architecture in the schools. So it's an AIA program where it covers K all the way through high school. I've only really taught younger kids. So I've done like second graders, third graders, and I think fifth and sixth graders. I did it, the first time I ever did it was when I was in grad school. So it was in a school in Philadelphia because I was at University of Pennsylvania for my preservation degree. And I had a group of fifth graders, and it was a mixed boys and girls both. Mm-hmm. And then when I came here to the DC area, I've done it a few times at a few different schools around for younger kids and older kids. And I think that, the AIA has been trying to, the American Institute of Architects, right, has been trying to get kids into these programs as much as possible to understand how architecture works. And so you basically go to an elementary school and you have to find a teacher who's willing to let you come in, for an hour, one day a week for about 10 weeks or something like that. And you put together the program and you teach them about architecture. And so I think that that's kind of one way that we've been doing it. I also taught an architecture club at my daughter's school. So it was an after school club. The PTA runs a series of clubs. And so that was kids who wanted to learn about architecture. So I did that with another architect mom. The two of us did that together for a couple of sessions. And then of course, I think, I don't know if it's specifically related to AEC, but for STEM, I honestly think that the Girl Scouts is one of the best organizations to help promote all of that. I mean, there's like some crazy statistic out there that if you look at, all the senators and all of the high rank engineers and all of the leaders of our country who are women, that like 90% of them were Girl Scouts. You know, I think that it really, and you know, going through leader training, I've been learning a lot about the background of helping to build confidence and helping to build leadership skills. And I think that it's one of those things that really helps to get girls out there and supports them. I mean, the organization supports girls. There's actually a troop in like New York City that's all of the girls that live in homeless shelters, and they've made a troop for that so that girls can still do it even if they don't have like a permanent home, you know, and a permanent place to be. They can still do this program to help them succeed and move forward.
I think that there are a lot of people who are just understanding the importance of STEAM and the importance of implementing STEAM at an early age. I have 2 kids. I have a kindergartner and a 5th grader, and their public school actually has a STEAM class that they're both involved in, and they go to, you know, twice a week, or maybe it's even 3 times a week now. And they cover all sorts of different things. I mean, they were even talking about, you know, erosion and walking around the school site after a rainstorm and looking, you know, for different places where the dirt was eroding away. And I just thought that this was pre-COVID when they were in the school buildings. But you know, so I think that people are definitely realizing the importance of STEAM, and it was really exciting to me when it was being, you know, specifically taught as you know, at the public schools.
Yeah, my kids, I think my daughter's still a little too young to get involved, but I have seen, I do think that it's gaining momentum. I actually saw, yeah, again, prior to COVID, but a new place of business pop up in just this little strip mall, and we happened to drive by it. And we were like, what is that? Only to go inside and find out that it was an entire STEM facility, right? So there was a number of experiments and things that our kids could pick and choose, and then go to a table like they're dining in and play around with the experience, make all the mess there. And the best part of it, we didn't have to clean it up. We could just walk away. And but yeah, I definitely think that it's gaining momentum, and just any little thing I can find, I'm certainly open to getting my children involved with it as well.
I think Katie and Stacey, you touched the really popular topic is pre-COVID world and COVID world. How you deal with the challenges? All of you are moms and having a lot of kids, if we summarize them. How you going through the challenges of working from home, and how it been before you before the pandemic started?
It's hard.
I'm
not gonna sugarcoat it. It's tough, and especially if you have younger children. I think Katie, you mentioned you have a 5-year-old, so we share in that age group. My children are 5 and 7. So for one of my children, they were in kindergarten and didn't really get that momentum and that, you know, that structure. They were just starting to understand, and now COVID happened. So now it's even more difficult to get him to realize that, you know, this is something you have to do every day, and that I can't always help you. And they're growing up really quickly because they don't have, I can't always be there. I can't always be over his shoulder or help him out with things. But we have to find that balance. It's finding that work-life balance even more so. And if that means that I have to help him out for a couple of hours during the day, and then working later hours after the 5 o'clock, right? Those normal working hours, or those normal business hours, are flexible. Now, instead of them being 8 hours or 10 hours, it's now 12 or 15. So it's tough. It's a tough balance, but finding times to break away. But I also think that it's really beneficial. I used to always say, like, the teachers and the preschools and the daycare spend more time with my children than I do. They spend more time, 40 hours a week plus at a daycare facility or some other facility. Now I get the opportunity to break at some point during the day, go downstairs and say, hey, how's it going? Or we get to have lunch together. So there's that break that I'm thankful that I get to spend more time with them. But it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it just like Stacey was saying, you know, there's no way to really sugarcoat it. You know, there's pros and cons. I mean, it's awesome now that, you know, the walk from, you know, upstairs down to my office is not you know, the commute time has drastically decreased. But my day overall is longer because I'm taking breaks to, you know, help them with meetings and, you know, to help, you know, facilitate things. And, you know, I'm really glad that a lot of, you know, my workplace, and I've talked with you know, a bunch of other people in their workplaces, some are more flexible than others. I mean, I think we're lucky that, you know, we work in an industry that can work from home. I mean, there are a lot of industries that are, you know, don't have that, you know, other parents who don't have that ability to, you know, have their kids at a desk next to them while they're at their desk doing their work. You know, they're having to be, you know, one of those frontline workers. So, you know, in that regard, I'm really thankful. But yeah, my day ends up being long because, you know, I might, you know, I do a chunk of time here and I do a chunk of time here and I do a chunk of time here and I do a chunk, you know, when they're, you know, going to bed. And, you know, I try to prioritize all my meetings. My work calendar now has a whole bunch of tentative meeting. I put them as tentative meetings when my kids have meetings because I don't want, you know, if someone's going to use the scheduling assistant to schedule a meeting with me, it's not my first choice to have a meeting when my kids are trying to have one of their live conferences with their class at the same time, just because of all the noise distractions. But if I have to have a meeting at that time, it's okay. But it's a good visual reminder for me to also make sure, like, hey, is my son like in his saxophone class at the right time or whatnot? Like, am I hearing things? No, he's okay, right? So so yeah, I mean, just checking in with the kids. I mean, sort of, I don't know if Purvi wanted to talk about sort of the mom role of things, but at the same time, I think another flip side of COVID is all of the web conferencing and, you know, not having things face to face as much. I mean, I think I miss being in the office. I really do. I think a lot of the junior engineers are probably the ones who are going to be missing out the most, because I think the office chatter of just sort of overhearing senior engineers talking when you're in an office environment that they're not getting by working from home. Even if they're not involved in the conversation, they're hearing the terminology, they're hearing the concepts, and then they're missing that. They're, you know, so I'm looking forward to being able to go back to the office, even if it ends up being like a hybrid, you know, roll in of part-time and whatnot, just to sort of be able to see the junior engineers and the mid-level staff and be able to, for them to see me too, and for us to be able to just talk and to overhear conversations and to, you know, to see what's open on screens and, you know, just be like able to point things out and be able to doodle and sketch and answer questions. I miss it.
You know, one thing I'll add before Purvi talks here is that, you know, the nice part about my kids being home is that, and I'm actually surprised one hasn't popped their head into this one right now, but they're curious. They want to know what I'm working on. So it gives me an opportunity to show them what I do and to have conversations around that, you know, obviously because we're in the engineering world or the AEC industry, is more of getting my children involved with STEAM. So I think that's kind of cool, but I agree with you, Katie. I miss traveling. I never thought that I would, but I do. You know, I think there's a balance, right? Maybe 50%, maybe not so much as before, but but I do miss traveling. I do miss seeing people face to face for sure.
Yeah, so just to add on top of that, so my kids are actually the same age. I have 2 kindergartners and a 5th grader. So that's, we all have kids that are the same age, which is pretty cool. So I think just, you know, I'm actually fortunate that my kindergartners, the daycare that they were going to, we asked them if they would open a kindergarten pod, and they did, because it kept the income at the daycare. So they actually go to their old daycare and are in their own room with their own teacher who facilitates their online learning. So they're still in front of a tablet all day, but they have someone there who's purpose is to help them, do that learning. So I don't have to do that for the younger kids, which is great, because if I had to facilitate 2 kindergartners learning, I don't think I could do my job. And my 5th grader, she's a very independent girl, so I don't have to worry about her at all. She takes care of herself. I barely even know she's here. But same thing, I do like that, she and I go walk the dog at lunch every day. So we get to spend a little bit of time together and have more of that time together. But it has blurred those lines between home and work, which has been more difficult. I have to say that, when the COVID first started, everybody was like, oh my gosh, I'm so bored, I have nothing to do. And I was like, what planet do you live on? Because in the planet of parent, like, it's worse, like I have less time to do things. So, and yeah, my sister, who doesn't have children, definitely has like taken up 6 more hobbies, but it's different for her because she couldn't go to dance class anymore. So she picked up some other hobby, and she couldn't, like, they just switched from being outside hobbies to in your house hobbies. But I also agree, I really miss the conferences, like, so much. I miss the social aspect of it. I'm a very social person. I'm a very extroverted person. And I miss actually going to client sites. I mean, I have one client where I used to go to their office every Wednesday, and my job was just to walk around and help fix things. And I miss that mainly just because, again, you overhear things, right? So you're walking around, you hear somebody do something, you're like, wait a second, you should not be doing it that way. And you walk over and you fix it, right? So I think that I miss that. And I think the clients miss that too, because when everybody's in their own silo, you can't see problems, right? Because you're not walking around and just noticing them as you go along. And then related to, the kind of the personal aspect of it, I actually think that I'm hoping, at least, that everybody working from home and having pets and having kids like come into Zoom calls has made everybody realize that everybody is human, and that really nothing that we do is like rocket science, and that if I don't finish that drawing today and I finish it tomorrow, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Like, I think that understanding the balance and what's really important, I think this has helped that a lot. And then also just showing our kids that, you can have passions in your life, and it's good and it's great to have a purpose that you've found. My kids love, like what you were saying, my 5-year-old son likes to come up and he's like, Mommy, can I just watch you do Revit? I'm like, sure. I don't know what you're gonna find interesting about it, but he's like, Mommy, what building are you drawing today? What's that building? And he gets really excited about it. So I think, all of that, I think it's helped, at least for me to get my kids, but I'm always talking about it. My kids know I'm a super nerd, and they're right there with me.
So Stacey, you mentioned pets. There were a couple comments that you mentioned kids and pets, I think. So there were 2 things that popped into my head during this part of the conversation. Wendy, our AEC community manager, who she couldn't be on this call because she's in Singapore and it's the middle of the night for her. I don't think I have been in a meeting with her yet where at least one of her kids didn't walk up with an iPad and start asking her questions. And the other thing was, I'm really surprised that we haven't seen a cat yet on this call.
My cat's been weaving in my feet, but he won't jump up into the screen.
Well, we're not done yet, so maybe a cat will show up before we're done.
That would be very funny to see all cats. We have like a pet show.
My manager's cat walks across his screen all the time. When we see him, we're like, oh, there's Simon. So yeah, he's a normal. He's normal in all of our meetings.
Now everyone knows the pets' names, nicknames, and everyone talk about your pets before starting the meeting, and that's the beauty of pandemic. But at the same time, we know that economics is going down worldwide. Do you see any changes in your workflow? Like you said that you're working overtime, but do you see any changes maybe in salary, maybe in number of projects?
I think the biggest change that we have seen has been printing. We have saved a ton of money in paper and printing resources, which is awesome.
That's so great. Yeah.
Especially in a digital delivery type of environment and world. I think it's coming to that. And I also think that maybe some companies are thinking we don't need so many offices that are smaller, right? Like I still think we need some collaborative spaces, but do people need to go to a space every day for 8 hours a day to be productive and to get work done and to collaborate? And I think the answer is no. And the longer we go through this pandemic, I just don't see, you know, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, or having collaborative spaces like the WeWork type of areas becoming more prevalent. But the everyday office buildings 8 to 5, I don't see it. I think that we're going to see a slight change in that aspect.
I agree. I think that in talking about how, how office life has changed kind of, we've definitely, I can't remember the last time I printed something outside of needing to print something that needed my signature that I would then immediately scan right back in, or stamp, do my engineering stamp, and then again, just sign the report cover right back in and attach that PDF page and send it off on its way. Marking up, plans, I'm doing it now all digitally. I mean, it used to be, I wanted a desk space that could fit, a nice 24 by 36 inch piece of paper, which obviously at home, I wouldn't have the space. I don't have a plotter at home, but I also wouldn't have the space here. But I love being able to mark up things digitally online, being able to, collaborate with my coworkers of, what things are getting done, what things need to get changed. Like, I think a lot of the digital collaboration that was already happening before COVID, but it really forced us to do it. I mean, same with sort of like these video conferences. I really hope at some point we go back to in-person conferences, especially for, some of the ones where you don't always, just being able to interact and network. But at the same time, like figuring out what can be done on a video conference meeting, or be done by an email or a phone call versus us all taking the time to travel and get together. There's a time and a place for that, but understanding, what can be done digitally, it's sort of forced us to do that. And I like some of the aspects of it.
Virtual reality wasn't really a thing for the AEC industry. Well, maybe for the construction industry, right? But now more so than ever. I keep hearing, Oculus come up and well, let's, how can we use this to make it feel like we're more in person, but not really in person? And I'm sure, Purvi, you've seen lots of changes with just space and the way that you design buildings and ensuring that there's adequate guidelines in place and distance between people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So, touching on that, so my job is to support architects for the most part. Most of my clients are either interior designers or base building architects. And so a lot of them have been doing a lot of redesigning of spaces. A couple of them have kind of started whole new kind of parts of their practice about how do we design for, COVID safety, which is really interesting. So definitely it's changing design. But in terms of like our business is support. And so we had a lot of people that, signed a contract with us and then COVID happened and they're like, wait, we can't spend that money right now. And, it went off the hold. So, April and May last year were not so good for us. And then I think once people kind of got into the groove and, if they were able to keep doing their projects, then they came back to us and said, okay, I think we're ready to do the Revit implementation and to get into BIM 360. And we actually got more BIM 360, which makes sense. And with Autodesk making it free for everyone for a while, I think that really helped to get more people into it. And once people got into it, they realized how much it helped the workflows. So I think that going back to that, the digital collaboration has really taken off because of that. And then going back to the meetings, it's not related to my job, but related to one of my extracurriculars. So I sit on the Board of Architectural Review for Alexandria, Virginia. And all of our meetings, we didn't have them for a little while. And then City Council was able to say, well, you can have these meetings virtually now because it's essential business. We're telling people what they can and can't do to their homes, right? So they decided that it was essential business for us to have meetings. And so we started having them on Zoom. And I think that it's really great because it's hugely increased our community participation. Like, I don't even know, like tenfold, because people don't have to like now come down to City Hall to speak on a case. They can just log in via Zoom and speak and give their opinions and their thoughts and, you know, their feedback on the project. So I think that it's been good in that way, in that in one way it's made things more equitable because more people can come. Now, of course, there is that technology hurdle. So I don't know if there are people who would have been able to show up in person and now can't because they don't have the technology. But I also live in a pretty affluent city that's been able to provide a lot for those who can't have it. I mean, every kid in our school district got a tablet or a Chromebook.
Too.
Every single kid, right? So K, first and second, all got tablets. A third and above, every single kid got a Chromebook. And if you didn't have Wi-Fi, you got a little hotspot, and it was free. And I think the local cable company was giving like $10 a month cable subscriptions for internet and all that stuff. And we've had a lot of good support in this area to help people with the technology. So I think that, you know, between that and then being able to have more access, I mean, all of our PTA meetings are online and we have a ton more people come to those too. So it's been really great to increase participation to some level. Nothing is 100% equitable. So whether you do it in person, whether you do it online, there's always going to be some group that can't come, right? So we kind of do as the best that we can to cover the most amount of people. But I think it's helped for sure.
That's one thing that the pandemic has really highlighted around the world is the technology gap.
Do you think those changes could help to attract more women into STEAM? Because we know the story about Zaha Hadid, who was not allowed to learn architects in her country, and then she moved to England and learned. And we know that not every woman in the world can get the same education as we are. But do you think that technology and changes we see in the industry could attract more female specialists into the industry?
I hope so. I think that, you know, because every school kid in our district has access to a tablet, every 5-year-old knows how to do Zoom. You know, it's that and you know, my son who's 5 and reads can like get to any website that he wants, for better or for worse. And so I think, you know, that's helped a lot with getting kids involved. But I think the downside that I found to it, and I found this with my 5th grader, is that they're expecting them to know how to use all of these tools, like the whole Google suite of things, right? Google, like all of the things in Google Drive, but nobody's teaching them how to do any of it. So I taught her how to do a Google Sheet the other day, and she saw me do math in Excel, and she's like, "What? Excel can do math?" I'm like, "It can do math for you. I'm not going to show you how to do it yet because you need to learn how to do it in your head first. But yes, it can do." And like, there's nobody teaching them how to use it, so they're kind of figuring it out, which is fine. But coming as an educator who really believes that, like, if someone teaches you something, it's a much more efficient way to learn it. I find that there's a gap there, right, with teaching how to use the technology. Just because you have it doesn't mean that you're using it the best way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that, you know, my kindergartner can use a mouse. That I don't think my son, when he was a kindergartner, could have used a mouse. You know, something as simple as that. And I was actually even talking to my daughter's kindergarten teacher, and she was talking about how, you know, they've for the past few years they've been doing, you know, an online like placement test just to sort of determine where the kids' levels are as far as skills go. And she was actually excited about doing it this year because now she's not having to teach the kids like how to move a mouse and how to click and how to do those things. It could actually, you know, understand where their skill levels are, not based off of technology limitations, but based off of actual like knowledge of sound and letter recognition that kindergartners are getting tested on. But yeah, I mean, I hope that all of this extra, you know, push into technology, and that is going to help our future generations go more into STEAM because it's available to them that they may not have had it available to them before.
Do you have any resources which you are inspired of, how to become a powerful woman in AC industry? What you can recommend?
Take this one only because it's very new for me and very recent for me. A lot of companies talk about diversity and inclusion, but dive in and find out, are they just talking it or are they walking it? And if it's important for you, align yourself with a company that shares the same values that you do. You know, and that's most recent for me. You know, part of Gannett Fleming culture is that they have groups for veterans, but also connected women. So there's an organization where, you know, they mentor and they work. It's not just women. It's not, you know, there's a lot that the COO and the CEO do to make sure that they are not just talking about diversity and inclusion, but they are enacting on it, and they're making sure that we are all included and we are all as one family. So the best advice I can give for anyone coming up into this industry, especially women, is do your research, find a company who truly believes it, truly walks it, and align yourself with those companies, and it'll serve you well, and be have confidence. Have confidence, because if you have confidence in yourself, when you align with a company like that, they will see that value, they will see that confidence, and they will go hand in hand.
I agree with everything that Stacey said, and that on a kind of more micro level, you know, I always tell people who want to be architects, go learn how buildings are put together. You know, go volunteer where you can get your hands dirty, where you can learn how to frame a building, where you can learn how to, I don't know, plaster a wall, if that's something that you're interested in from that standpoint. How, you know, you want to, how you know, pour concrete, learn how to do those things, because that will give you the actual experience and actual knowledge behind the confidence, right? I mean, confidence is one thing. You don't want to go too far where you're overconfident, where you can't actually back it up with anything. I think that making sure that you know what you're talking about and then showing that you know what you're talking about is important. And then always asking questions. I have to say that in the architecture field, I found that there are too many intern architects who come to firms who are just thrown into projects and they don't ask any questions, and they just decide that they're just going to figure it out themselves, which ends up causing a lot more problems, because one, they don't know how to put buildings together, which is fine. The purpose of working is to learn how to do that, right? And they don't know how to use Revit in an office setting, which is 1,000% different than how you use it at school, you know, and they don't know the workflows of the company, but they're afraid because they think that if they ask a question, people are going to think less of them because they think that they're not smart. Where in fact, I actually think that it takes more courage to ask a question and to admit that you don't know something, and then to learn from it. I mean, I do that all the time. I sat in on a webinar yesterday that was a whole bunch of like BIM gurus, and there was like something that someone said, and these people who've been using Revit for like 15 years were like, what? I didn't know that was there, you know, and it's great, and we love it, and we learn from it, and we, you know, expand our own knowledge. Every time I teach, I learn something new, and I'm not afraid. I mean, in our slides that we have in our introductions, we say, you know, stump the chump is fun for all, which means ask me a question that I can't answer. And if I can't answer it, I will find the answer for you, you know, and maybe the answer is you can't do that, but it's still an answer. And I will admit when I don't know the answer, but I will say I will go find that answer for you. So I think that that is really important too, is teaching people that they need to be able to question and, you know, be able to learn. And on top of what Stacey said, is aligning yourself with a firm that has your same values. You want to, you know, find those people who can help you, those, you know, those colleagues that are strong, who, you know, have some influence, and those of us who do have it, to use that privilege for good. I mean, I know that we all have privilege, we do, and privilege comes in a gazillion different flavors, right? And for us, being where we are right now, that is a privilege for us that we can use to help bring up the next generations to be stronger. And the more of us there are, the more we can, you know, make that gender gap smaller, and hopefully eventually eliminate it altogether.
Definitely give back, mentor others. Once
Exactly.
you get here, once we're here, start mentoring others.
On top of that, sponsor others. I attended a fantastic class at Autodesk University 2019 when we were in person in Las Vegas. And Andrea Jensen was talking about women and diversity and the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, and how you know, males in the industry are often sponsored. They're given opportunities, and they're invited to like come to these great events and come to these great opportunities and participate in this project and whatnot. And the women are often given mentorship opportunities. Like, I'll teach you how to do this, but I'm not going to give you the opportunity to then do it. So I think there's a balance of, I mean, especially for me with, there's plenty of senior staff above me and there's plenty of junior staff below me. So it's advocating for myself in that, like, I'm reaching out to, women in high places that like, and asking them, how did you get there? And can you help me? Like, and then, but also giving those same opportunities to, some of the women that are junior of me, and letting them know that I'm a safe person for them to come to, and that I'm going to advocate for them, and I'm going to see their worth, and that I'm going to give them those opportunities, and to have them right there alongside of me so that they can, bring up the next generation. I mean, I think in every profession, in STEAM and out of STEAM, it's all about, getting connections and being your best person and getting to that high standard. So that means getting help from the top and helping those below.
We want the long lines at the bathrooms at Autodesk University 2021, 2022, whenever we're back in person, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that photo that somebody posted. It was like the one place in the world that the line for the men is way longer than the line for the women.
So. Yep. Every break.
Have you seen the picture with the stormtroopers waiting to get into the bathroom?
Yes.
My very first year teaching at Autodesk University was 2011. And right after I finished my class, a young woman came up to me and, she complimented me on my class, said she learned a lot. And she just said, it was really nice to see a woman talking up at front. She's like, I don't think I ever had, she said, I know I never had a woman teacher throughout, all my high school, all my science-y type classes, right? So you think of women teachers in like the elementary school, sometimes the middle, but once she got to high school, she's like, I didn't have any women teachers for like STEAM classes. In college, she's like, I never had any women teachers for any of my, STEAM engineering type of classes. She's like, I work with all men, so that Autodesk University was her first time seeing a real example. And I was like, oh, like that made me sad. And I'm so glad that we're growing from that. And, there's definitely is, women that are leading. So.
And there's more and more. I mean, we're finding more. I think I looked at the statistics, and so there's other conferences that I go to that really promote having more women, and they've been publishing statistics about the number of women, and there's definitely been noticeable percentage points higher. So it's good that the information is getting out there, and women like us, if we're putting our names out there, showing that we're here, right? I mean, it's kind of like when Kamala Harris got elected. Now people are like, oh, look, yes, a brown woman can be vice president. Like, that's possible. And people just, if you don't see it, you don't think that it's possible. So we need to be that so people can see it and know that it's an option for them.
Absolutely.
That's very inspiring. Very. I'm listening to this. My first AU was in 2011 as well, and I didn't recognize the queue to the restroom. Is it men or women? But right now I'm feeling like I'm back to Vegas, feeling the Autodesk University vibes, and what you said about industry, how we can lead. Like lead by example, follow the example. And I think what you said is, attract more women into the industry. And we're gonna ask the last question. And Chris, do you want to ask this question?
Yeah, it's kind of a wrap-up question. So I'd like each one of you to give us your parting words of wisdom or advice for anyone that you want to influence with.
Be confident. Okay. You know it. You know that information. Speak up and be confident.
So I would say, don't be afraid to try new things, and don't be afraid to fail. Right? Failure is just one way that didn't work. It's cool. Find people who can help you. Help those who you can help. Ask questions. One of the main things I learned from architecture school is that not everything you make is sacred. So learn that. I mean, having critiques every week and having professors, say, yeah, start over. It really helps give you a thick skin. And I think that's important to know. And of course, not taking yourself too seriously.
Don't get discouraged. Just keep swimming. We see you. We hear you. It's tough. We're all in this together. If you need help, don't be afraid to reach out and just say, I need help. And that's like the one thing, right? As women, sometimes we think we can handle everything, and sometimes we just can't. So don't be afraid to ask for help when you feel like you need it, and just keep going. You're doing great. You will get there.
I think I needed to hear those words.
You're doing great, Mom.
What they say, right? You're doing the best that you can, and what you're doing is the best for you. That's
Absolutely.
You know, no judgment. I think that's also important. No judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's doing the best that they can for themselves and their families and where they are. And, you know, if they want help getting further, or they feel that they need that, we're here to help.
I'm working in the men world. I mean, I used to work in the men world. I used to learn stuff in the men world, and well, it's tough. I understand that. I understand that sometimes we need to be just a mother or just a wife, housekeeper, and, you know, like spend a day laying in bed and eating strawberries. But at the same time, I know that women can do even better than men in mathematics. For example, we have a lot of examples, and I really inspired by you, ladies. You're very, I don't know. I think I have 3 role models right now.
Well, I want to take this time to thank all 3 of you for sharing your stories, your journeys, your advice with us and with our audience. And I want to ask anyone who is watching this video, wherever you came across it, please give us your feedback. Let us know what you think about this. And add your comments to the speakers. We will relay them on as we can. And thank you all for watching, and thank you all for participating.